Welcome everyone to Tribe Talk. You're here with Rachel Evans
and Laura Neal.
And today we're talking about de-escalation. So what helps in the moment when your child is escalating?
So this podcast is for parents if your child escalates. So that might mean hitting, it might be throwing items, it might be shouting, swearing, running away, it might be that they're breaking items. If that sounds like your child, then this podcast is for you. So Rachel, when we say the word escalation or escalating, what do we actually mean?
Yeah, it's really important that we define it, isn't it? Because escalation can look so different for different children. So you've covered a couple in your intro there, but it's essentially challenging behaviour, and when that really increases, so it intensifies. So things such as, like you listed, throwing items, shouting, swearing, being physically aggressive. So that might look like hitting, kicking, property destruction. It's when those behaviours really escalate to a certain extent where it is kind of like down tools and we need to support the child in that moment.
Yeah,
that's what we say when a behaviour becomes escalated.
Yeah, and it can include some more unusual behaviours as well. So things like spitting would be one, or for some of the children that we support, it could be threats to harm themselves or threats to harm others. Those would come under that as well.
And usually when we're talking about challenging behaviour escalating, you're probably thinking yourselves now, thinking about your own child, there'll be about 4 or 5 behaviours that you might be targeting then, or behaviours that you're concerned about, and these behaviours increase from time to time, or more frequently than what you'd like. But you know, each child that we would work with, they'd have a different set of behavioural priorities that we're kind of working through to help them to manage when those things happen, when those behaviours happen.
And when we're talking about an escalation, we're talking about what happens in the moment. So it's not maybe what will happen down the road, it's like what's happening now and how do you deal with that and how do you de-escalate?
Yeah. Because that is so different, isn't it, to when we're trying to support that behaviour in out of context.
Yeah.
So we have those times where we're trying to teach and we're trying to support a child learn more appropriate behaviours, but when they're escalating, we just need to support in a very different way, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So de-escalation then, what do we mean when we say de-escalation?
So de-escalation is all about how you calm that child in the moment. And I'm saying the word child, this can happen across children who are very young, but then our teens, our young people who are going into adulthood as well. De-escalation is when they're very escalated and you as the adult around them are trying to de-escalate or calm that situation.
Yeah, definitely. And that is more often than not sometimes with some of the parents and carers that we're supporting, finding yourself, let's just use the word firefighting, you're in firefighting mode where you have to just manage that behaviour in the moment, help your child to calm, and then we're moving on to a new day. But it's important that, you know, whenever we're talking about de-escalation, we're not giving in, the child's not winning in that situation, or we're not forcing compliance in any way. It is just supporting them to calm in that moment, to regulate, to then be able to move on.
I think that's an important point, because I think lots of parents that we talk to, they do see it as, oh, well, I'm giving in to their demands, and it's not about that. When you're de-escalating, it's about that connection that you're making, about helping that child or young person to regulate, about helping them to be able to deal with their own feelings, their own emotions. It's not necessarily about giving in the moment, it's about giving them what they need within that moment.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's overwhelming feelings for them, and feelings that they cannot manage, and have learnt let's just say these inappropriate, more challenging ways to be able to cope, and it's our jobs to help them to find more appropriate ways to calm in that moment. So the parents and carers that we support, or the children that we are supporting that are struggling with managing emotions, and we're seeing high levels of challenging behaviour, it is hard, you know, for parents and carers to be managing that. So we might be working with families that are dealing with these behaviours multiple times in the day. or they might be really big behaviours, but they happen like once a week. And it, you know, in both situations, we cannot forget that for parents and carers, trying to help a child to manage throughout that situation, but also what they're experiencing themselves as well, is really difficult.
Yeah.
So some of the feedback we've had from parents and carers through consultations is just exhausting.
Yeah.
Managing that like multiple times a day, feeling worried that, especially if it's behaviours such as self-interest behaviours, might be biting or head banging, and when that happens, you know, I was just talking to a colleague just now about hair pulling to such an extent where it's caused damage, you know, and the hair is there's like a bald patch here on at the front of her head, like that is causing like that must be causing significant worry, because she's causing so much injuring herself in that way. So what parents and carers are going through in that time is worry, for themselves, for their child, and you know, exhaustion because they're managing this time and time again, and what do I do next? I feel like I tried everything, you know.
Yeah, and I think I think it's worry, exhaustion, but also that feeling of I must be a bad parent because otherwise my child wouldn't be doing this. And for many of the children that we support, as you know, that's not the case. It's that we have to adjust things and get it right for that child. But all of these feelings go, you feel all of these feelings, and then all of these thoughts, I think, go through your mind as a parent when you're dealing with such a difficult situation with your child, and just wondering, well, why is it that other children don't do this and my child is? And actually escalation like this is far more common than we realise, I think, and lots of families don't talk about it, but it is certainly something that we commonly see is escalation in young people.
Because, you know, we're specifically talking about children with trauma histories and these high levels of behaviour, but like you opened up with the podcast, Laura, escalation is an increase in any behaviour. And that will look different for every child and for every family. There's worries like that going on, you know, if we're seeing a different presentation in a child that's happening time and time again, and we're thinking, how am I going to support this, you know? It is a really worrying time.
So Rachel, what do parents do in these moments when these moments of escalation happen?
Yeah, I think the first thing that we should all be doing is kind of just taking a breath and taking a mental kind of step back, and tell yourself, I am in firefighting mode. Like, this is what I need to do. You're in like a different mode of support. So usually in my consultations with parents and carers, I'll go through these 3 different stages of support. So 80% of the time we're usually in our like teaching stage, where we've got our strategies that we're supporting, but that is a time when a child is really calm. We can teach a child communication, we can teach them more appropriate ways to behave. That is like 80% of the time. And then other times when behaviours are bubbling, we can use distraction, and that can kind of distract them out of that behaviour, and we found calm again. But when we're talking about behaviours escalating and we need to de-escalate, take a breath, take a step back and tell yourself, I am in firefighting mode. It is a different way of supporting, isn't it? A different strategy. It's like down tools. I'm not teaching, because anything I say right now is likely going to go in one ear and out the other. They're not regulated to be able to take in any instruction. So we are kind of in firefighting mode, and I think we just need to remind ourselves that. And often I'll say to parents and carers, like, tell yourself, you know, take a step back, take a breath. Now I'm ready to support my child. And it takes like a split second, isn't it? But I think that's really important.
Yeah, and what you said, I think there was really important. They're not going to take anything in at that moment. So everything we think that we're going to put in place, whether that's a boundary, whether that's teaching them something, this is not the moment to do it.
No, we've missed that moment. but it's okay.
Yeah.
Like it is, and to tell yourself it is okay to be in firefighting, because that is the best thing that you can do for your child right now. Because I think if you're trying to fix the problem by teaching, if you're trying to distract, we might be accidentally reinforcing a behaviour that we didn't want to in the first place. So I think, you know, more often than not, we are trying to our best and trying to fix a situation, but just tell yourself, like, it's okay to be in firefighting. This is the best thing that I can do for my child now, and yourself, to keep yourself safe, your child safe. And we're just in this mode and of support, and we'll, you know, it's only for a short time, and then we can move on. You know, tomorrow's a new day. But I think that is the first thing that we should do.
So in the moment, after you've taken a step back, you've composed yourself as the adult, you've realised, okay, I'm going into a different mode here. The first thing to do is, I think, to realise that we kind of need to be slow at this point. So we want to reduce instructions, we want to increase empathy, but one of the biggest things that I always think about is I don't want to over talk.
Yes.
Because I think this is where we can get it really wrong sometimes, is by over talking and trying to provide so much reassurance or negotiation that it overrides everything we're trying to do. So it almost going into slow mode. So empathise, reassure your child that you're there for them. You might give her some very simple instructions, but a lot of that time it's about being there. It's not necessarily about giving any instruction or direction, and most certainly not negotiation in that moment. Now, within our tribe training, we have a method we use called Spark, and we teach that within the training. For our parents and carers listening who've attended that training, this is where you would use Spark. If you haven't attended that training, it's definitely something I would recommend if you are being faced with escalations frequently. But it is about slowing down within this moment.
Yeah, I think you make a good point about just like what we're saying in that moment. You know, reducing instruction, reducing demand. It goes back to the previous point. They're not going to take anything in at that point. So it's like short, sharp instructions, things that they will be able to take in. But you're there. You know, you're also telling them that you're there for them as well. You're not going anywhere. Your relationship isn't fractured in any way. It is. We just need to kind of ride that wave a little bit. But I think it also comes down to like the language that we're using as well. You know, we all know our children the best and what will help in that moment and what will trigger in that moment. So I think we've got to be really selective as well in what we're saying. So to give you an example, a few weeks ago I was supporting a child who was engaging in shouting, swearing, was threatening to be a little bit more physically aggressive. But every time we would go to talk to him to provide that little bit of instruction, and as soon as we said the word calm, behaviours just escalated again. So we quickly learned, like, let's avoid that word, and we changed that then completely. So it's really important, isn't it, that we're considering language and what we're saying to help that child to calm, not to trigger anything else. Yeah,
that's so important, because I think in the moment you could be saying something like, I'm here for you, I'm going to do everything I can do to help you calm, and from that word increases that escalation. Language is so important in trauma-informed care, and I don't think that we always place the value on it that's needed, but language can turn a situation around either in the positive or in the negative completely. So we really need to be mindful of our language, particularly during escalations.
And I think for every child that will look very different, isn't it? And we're kind of moving into more those individualized type of supports, that because we need to know you know, more about what's going on for your child, to move away from having more of a general strategy to something more individualized. And that comes back to like what you're saying in the moment as well, in the language. you know, you as parents and carers will know your children the best, to know what's gonna trigger, what's gonna calm. But when we're planning, then very specific de-escalation strategies, that's what we're looking for, isn't it? More about what is the purpose of this behaviour, what's the function of that behaviour, and individualising those strategies to help them to de-escalate.
Yeah, and I think within all this you're remembering your own co-regulation as well. So you are the model that your child will learn from, so you have to remain very calm and just very consistent in your approach as well. So you've got a low tone and you're not using too much language, you're communicating that you're there for them, but everything that you're exhibiting shows I'm regulated, I'm here for you, I am calm, because they can copy that then, and that's where co-regulation comes in.
Yeah, that's such an important point. And I think that comes with practice, and it takes a lot of practice to kind of nail that. As you were talking, Laura, it was taking me back to my experience working in a school and working with teachers and learning support assistants. And even if you feel not dysregulated yourself, as in worried or anxious during that situation, sometimes just the busyness and the rush of that behaviour happening, your body language, or from my experience of working with teachers in classrooms, it becomes very erratic, and you're giving off a different message there, not I'm regulated myself. So going back to what you were saying earlier, slow it down, like calm yourself down, isn't it? But I think that does take a lot of practice and a lot of self-awareness of where you are in that situation.
Yeah, you've definitely got to be able to reflect on yourself and think, and it's okay to get it wrong as well.
Yeah, we're not perfect.
You know, when you reflect on it, think, oh, I didn't get it quite right that time. And I think, you know, the amount of times I've done that with my children and stepped away and thought, oh, I should have dealt with that differently. And that's okay, but we learn from it. And it is very difficult within these situations to always remain calm, regardless of whether you're a parent, carer, teacher, whoever you are within that situation, particularly because sometimes our children know the buttons that they need to press to make us escalate. So just being mindful of that as well.
Yeah, knowing what that is for you, like what triggers you to go into like a different behaviour.
Yeah. And I think remembering you can't de-escalate if you're escalated, and if you just keep that in your head, I can't de-escalate if I'm escalated, then that will lead you down the right path, because it leads you to think, okay, I need to take a step back here.
Yeah. And I think that use your resources as well. So like in a school, you might have the luxury of having more than one learning support assistant, but you might not. Yeah. But if there's more people that you can call on, tag team, because not every day we're gonna be able to regulate. There might be other stuff that's going on in personal lives, or just a really tricky day, and it takes a big person to say, I'm not ready to do this, or I can't support this child right now, I need a tag team. Or with two parents or carers in the house that you can like tag team. It's when if you're a solo carer, that becomes a little bit more difficult when you don't feel in the right place to kind of regulate, and you kind of just trying to muddle through to support. But taking that step back and that breath of this is what I need to do now usually helps.
And we call it change of face sometimes as well, just having that change of face, particularly if you're the person who's been around for a long period of time that day, can help the child to de-escalate as well.
Yeah, those strategies work really well.
Sometimes it's easier to look at the things that you don't do when you're trying to de-escalate. So number one would be don't become escalated yourself. So remembering to take that step back. Number two, I always recommend this, is not to get into negotiations with your child. Once you start that negotiating process, because they're already escalated, they're very likely to up the ante in terms of escalation. most certainly reduce demands. So don't place more demands. More demands in that moment are going to likely increase escalation.
Yeah. And we just don't want to jump in and fix, the situation. It is about just letting that play out, like you said, Laura, with, watch the language that you're using, don't place too many demands. Knowing that you're in firefighting mode, we're not fixing anything for a child, we're just supporting them in that moment, and we will reach a point where they'll start to calm down, and we've just got to reach that point. So it can take as long as it takes, and sometimes that is an hour or so for some children. Sometimes we see that happen for about half hour, but the more that we follow this advice that we've been speaking about today, you will see those escalations reduce in duration. Yeah,
so don't try and fix in the moment.
No.
And that kind of brings us quite nicely on to repair. So when the moment's over, what do you do?
Yeah, repair, that is so important, where we're just using that time to make sure that we're supporting that space between child and adult, and you're repairing, you're debriefing. I'm always there for you, I still love you. That is so important, especially when we're talking about trauma-informed care and working with children that have care experience, because their thought process is probably, well, that's it now, I've ruined that. But doesn't do anything to our relationship. We just need to try and find something different next time.
I think the repair is definitely something that adults can find the hardest sometimes, because you may have been supporting a child who has escalated substantially. So they might have thrown things, they might have broken items, they might have called you every name under the sun.
It's personal.
Yeah, they might have made it very personal, they might have pushed all of your buttons, and where our advice is, well, you need to repair that afterwards. And repair is really making sure that they know that relationship isn't broken and you're still there for them. So it can be really difficult, but as the adults in this situation, the sooner we can do that, and the sooner that we can do that repair, the sooner that you can move forward from that incident that's happened. And I think if we think of it in terms of attachment, it can be really helpful to see why it is that we need to repair. For children who've experienced trauma, their relationships have often continuously broken down. So they might have had multiple relationships with parents, family members, siblings, friends that have broken down. And that's what they expect from this, is that they've had this escalation and now this relationship is completely broken. So what we want to do as soon as we can is show them that the relationship isn't broken, the relationship is still there, we're going to move forward, I still love you, I'm still there for you. And you're giving them that positive example of relationships can move on, and giving them something to base the next time they're feeling like they need to, like they have to escalate, on that actually they can have a conversation, they can talk to you, they can come to you for help. So you're creating that foundation over time.
Yeah, as you were talking there, Nora, I was thinking about, sometimes these escalations happen as a way of like self-sabotage as well. So they're trying to break that relationship down because that's what's happened in the past, and relationships don't stick around. So more often than not, we are seeing those behaviours because children want to push you away before you get an opportunity to. So that's why the repair is so important in both all those contexts. To show a child that you're here to stay. Regardless of their behaviour, you're going to continue to support them. Yeah, and you'll be there for them. Yeah, which is one of the most important things you can do. So to finish up today, we have a question from a foster carer, and the foster carer has said that she practices co-regulation all the time. So she has a young lad who escalates to shouting, swearing, throwing items, and she practices co-regulation and will co-regulate with him. But he continues to escalate and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. So he'll escalate to hitting and punching, will break items, and it doesn't seem to de-escalate very quickly.
and there will always be damage because either someone will get hit or something will get broken. So what would you recommend in that situation, Rachel?
Yeah, that's tough. What I would be recommending in that situation is to have more of an individualised strategy then for de-escalation. So you have something very specific to that young lad, you know, what is kind of driving his behaviours and what's going to help him to calm in that moment. What I will also say as well is this is the importance of data as well, to know what is exactly going on when things are escalating, because I think sometimes we can perceive situations to be worse than what they are, in that we could be making a tiny bit of progress, but sometimes that's missed, especially when, you know, that carer seems to be managing those behaviours at such a frequency. It's going to feel like it's really hard and nothing's getting better. So it's always great to kind of revisit our data to see, like, how often is that happening and what is the duration of those behaviours, to see if that is making an impact. But that definitely sounds like we do need something a little bit more individualised as well.
Yeah, because I think, I believe we've done a podcast on this before, but there are different types of intervention, and what we've talked about in terms of co-regulating, making sure you're taking a step back, making sure that you're remaining calm, being reassuring, they're what we'd call generalised interventions.
Yeah.
Whereas for many young people who escalate in this manner, so it's actually to breaking items or hurting themselves or others, they need an individualised strategy.
Yes.
So somebody who can come in and look at exactly what's going on and then make some recommendations to the parent or carer based on what's individual to that young person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, that, you know, it's tough, isn't it, when you're dealing with that day in, day out, and it feels like you're trying everything and nothing's working. Yeah,
and I think there's probably not enough information out there about individualised interventions, but they're really needed for some of our young people, so recognising when that's needed and then asking for that support is what our recommendation would be.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of our podcast on de-escalation. So I think the important thing to kind of take away is to look at de-escalation and break it down step by step. So first thing we need to be doing is taking a step back, taking a deep breath, and knowing that you're in firefighting mode. It's important to reduce demands in that moment. Be really mindful of your language. That will help calm and not trigger. And then if you need anything a little bit more individualised, then really looking at, you know, what's the purpose of those behaviours and how can I support de-escalation that's individual to my child. And then what's really, really important is after we've supported de-escalation, is to find that time to repair with your child and repair that relationship.
Thanks, Rachel. Hopefully that's been helpful today. If you want to know more about trauma-informed care, then subscribe to Tribe Talk for more trauma-informed care in practice.